Don't trust your children in old age. And I don't say that lightly. I say that as a psychologist who's seen far too many people destroyed by the idealized version of family that lives only in their head. You think blood will protect you. You think your children will be there at your side. When your strength fades, when your joints ache and your memory begins to falter, you believe they'll love you the way you love them. You believe they'll care for you with the same selflessness you poured into them across the decades. But belief isn't truth and sentimentality is a poor substitute for reality. Let me tell you something hard, and I mean really hard. So listen, there are many old people sitting alone right now in cold fluorescent lit rooms of care homes who once cradled babies in their arms. There are mothers and fathers with hands trembling from Parkinson's who once built homes and careers to give their children a better life. And where are those children now? Absent, silent, disconnected. So why does this happen? Why do the very children you raised, fed, clothed, educated sometimes turn away or worse, exploit the very people who gave them everything? Well, here's the truth. Children do not owe you love, they do not owe you loyalty, and they certainly do not owe you care. That sounds brutal, I know, but the contract of parenthood is asymmetrical by design. You give without expecting, you serve without repayment, you sacrifice without applause. But here's where the danger lies. When you don't come to terms with that asymmetry, when you build your old age on the hope that your children will carry the same burden, in reverse you're setting yourself up for devastation. That's not how nature works, and it's not how the psyche thrives. I've sat across from too many elderly patients who placed all their bets on familiar love. They ignored building a network. They neglected cultivating their purpose. They abandoned any sense of sovereignty because they believed their children would become their safety net. And when that net failed, they fell hard. I had one client, older man, strong, stoic, proud. He had 2 children. He poured everything into them, paid their tuition, funded their first homes, even helped raise their kids. And when his wife died and he finally asked for something in return, a simple request to move in for a while because his health was deteriorating, they said no. They didn't have the space or the time or the emotional capacity. And that broke him not just emotionally but existentially. He couldn't understand how the people he would have died for could walk away when he needed the most. But the answer wasn't cruelty. It was human nature. They had their own lives, their own chaos, their own wounds, and they couldn't or wouldn't carry his. Now, does that mean all children will abandon their parents? No, of course not. Some are loyal beyond measure, some are kind, some rise to the occasion magnificently. But that is the exception, not the rule. And if you build your life around exceptions, you are gambling with your future. You are confusing hope with strategy. So what do you do instead? You build 3 pillars. 3 solid, grounded, immovable pillars that you can lean on when your strength fails and the tides of time try to wash you away. Not sentimental illusions, not fragile dependencies, real structures, psychological structures, existential foundations. The first is sovereignty, capacity to remain the author of your life as long as possible. This means physical health. Yes, of course, eat properly, move daily, sleep deeply, but beyond that, it's the ability to think, to decide, to retain the reins of your own destiny. Do not hand over the steering wheel of your life to your children just because you grow old. Too many elderly people surrender their agency too early. They believe age disqualifies them from autonomy. But that's a lie. As long as your mind functions, as long as your voice can speak, you fight to stay in control. Because when you give up control, what you get in return is not peace, it's infantilization. Your choices are overridden. Your opinions are dismissed. You become someone to be managed, not respected. And that corrodes the soul. I watched this happen to a woman, let's call her Elanina. She was a fiery spirit in her youth, built a business, raised 4 kids, buried a husband, and then at 76, she handed her finances over to her daughter just to make things easier. Within a year, she was broke. Not because her daughter was malicious, but because she didn't understand how to manage wealth. Eleanor lost her independence, and more than that, she lost her voice. So, retain your sovereignty, make plans, handle your finances, set boundaries, speak your mind. Age should not mean silence. Age should mean wisdom demand. Wisdom demands expression. The second pillar is community. And this is crucial because the most dangerous myth we've inherited is that family will be enough. It won't. You need friends, allies, neighbors. You need the woman down the street who checks in on you. You need the man at the coffee shop who notices when you're not around. You need a tribunal, just a tree. In fact, the healthiest elderly people I've encountered mentally and emotionally weren't the ones with the most children. They were the ones with the most connection. They built lives full of contribution. They volunteered. They mentored. They joined clubs. They were embedded in the community, not isolated in the echo chamber of their living room. So, if you're listening to this and you're older or even just approaching that stage, you must ask yourself, have I built a life where people would miss me if I disappeared? Not because they're obligated to, but because they care. That is a life well constructed. That is a safety net of human dignity. Now, the third pillar, perhaps the most important of all, is meaning you must have something to live for that transcends comfort, that transcends even relationships, something sacred, something personal. Because here's the brutal truth, even if your body holds up and even if your children stay loyal and even if your community will still face the dark, the loneliness of three doing, the ache of missing those who died, creeping awareness of your own mortality, and in those moments you must have something bigger than planet God, call it a mission, call it a legacy, but whatever the mission be real for you, it must be deep because when we with the when your joints scream and the plume doesn't ring and when the word moves, we move moves You need a reason to breathe, and that reason can't be your children because if they leave or disappoint or pass away before you douse, what I've seen elderly people light up with purpose when they discover they can still mentor, still teach, still write, still create. One man I knew, 87 years old, began painting for the first time in his life, not for money, not for fame, just for the act itself. He said it made him feel alive again, like time didn't own him. And that's the trick, isn't it? To live in such a way that time doesn't own you. You do not need to become a bitter, dependent shell of yourself just because you enter the latter chapters of life. You do not need to tolerate disrespect or invisibility or abandonment. You are still here, still breathing, still capable of fierce wisdom and quiet strength, but you must stop waiting for others to save you. That includes your children, especially your children, because the world has changed, the structures of family have changed. We don't live in multi-generational homes anymore. We don't share communal farms. We live in scattered cities with fractured routines. And our kids, they're buried under their own chaos, their own anxieties, their own identities. It's not that they don't love you, it's that they're drowning, so don't cling to them like a life raft, you both go under. Instead, become the lighthouse, become the solid ground, be the elder who shows them how to live by how you grow old. And if they do show up, if they surprise you with grace, with kindness, with love, then receive it with gratitude, not entitlement. Because love given freely is far more powerful than love extracted from guilt. So what do you do now? You make a plan, you look at your finances, you talk to your doctor, you build your community, you find your purpose. You do it today, not tomorrow, not someday, because you don't want to wait until the phone doesn't ring to realize you're alone. And if you're younger, if you still have time, then build these pillars now, because no one escapes old age if they're lucky. And when it comes, you want to face it with strength, not desperation. Let me leave you with this. Being old doesn't mean being finished. It doesn't mean being useless, it doesn't mean being forgotten, but it does mean responsibility. The responsibility to adapt, to lead, to transform. So don't trust your children to carry you. Trust yourself to walk with dignity. Trust your habits to shape your peace. Trust your choices to protect your future. And if this resonates with you, if you felt that knot in your stomach, that sting of truth, then share this not just for views, for lives. Because somewhere right now, an old man is waiting for a call that isn't coming. A woman is wondering why her daughter hasn't visited in 6 months. They need this message, and maybe you need it too. Now go build those pillars while you